What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Timeless Season 1, Episode 2, The Assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And if all of the episodes are titled that simply, I don't think I'm going to have any trouble remembering them. But yeah, this, as the title states, this week is about the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. They're going back trying to save him, they're thinking about trying to save him. Flynn is back there trying to do something. They're not really sure what. This was a very interesting episode, and about halfway through, it started to drone on a little bit. I'm like, I don't know about this, how to feel about it anymore. And then they started discussing the possibility of saving Abraham Lincoln. And I think one of the things that this show got right from the very beginning, they brought along a historian. Now, I've seen this done, like I've said, this idea is not foreign, traveling back in time to change the future, change the present, whatever. That idea is not foreign, but I don't know if I've seen one done that has this much passion involved. It may have, and I just haven't seen it yet, but I really like how, while they're going through all of this, Lucy knows all of the history. She knows what happens today. She knows the players involved. And you can see how much it affects her. And I like that. I like how they play on that emotion. While she's in the room with Abraham Lincoln, you could see, her eyes are welling up with tears. One, tears of joy because she's meeting Abraham Lincoln, who she idolizes. But also you can see, this sad smile on her face, like she knows what's about to happen, and she can't decide, do I let it happen or do I not let it happen? And it's really troubling her. And I think the fact that she loves the history so much makes it so much more easy to connect to the history that's going on in front of us. Because, up until halfway through, when they actually started discussing some of the stuff about saving him, about possibly letting history change, they started discussing all of this. Before that, it just felt like things were sort of going through the motions. It's like, oh, history, they're back in time again, they're doing things, Rufus is dealing with the being black again, all that stuff. It felt very similar to the first episode. And then they started talking about this, and it started getting more in-depth into what to do in this situation. And I was just like, yeah, that is interesting. What would you do in that situation? If you went back trying to stop a guy from changing history, would you possibly want to change history too? Would you want to save Abraham Lincoln? Or would you say, if Abraham Lincoln lives, then history changes, so he needs to die today? It would be kind of interesting to see the outlook on that, what most people would do in that situation. So I like that idea that they've got going. But beyond that, as it started wrapping up, there are several things that caught my attention that is really, after the end of last week, when she got back from the Hindenburg disaster, and her mother's completely fine, and she has no more sister. That idea already intrigued me. It's like, okay, so things have changed because of what happened on the Hindenburg. That's interesting. I want to know more about that. So she comes back. She has this one girl who works at the lab. She has her look up her family tree and figure out what went wrong. So she tells her who her mother and father were, that type of thing. So she comes back and the girl's talking to her, says, so in this timeline that you're from, your mother married your father, had you in this year, and had your sister in this year. In this timeline, your mother never married your father. He went and married somebody else. So, that means your sister was never born. But then all of a sudden she starts thinking, and I immediately caught it. I'm like, wait, but if her mother and father never married, you have to have the right genes to make her specifically. You can't put her mother with somebody else and make her, unless, and that's when it hits her, she's like, my mother never had me with my father. That type of thing would be crazy to figure out, through time travel, of all things. You go to another timeline, your mother is not married to your father, and yet you were still born. That starts to raise some questions. You're like, wait, was I adopted? Did she have an affair? What happened? I love that it's just like little things that they're throwing into this series that's really raising some questions. And stuff I haven't really seen done in the time travel aspect before. I've seen some stuff done A lot of the stuff going back in time, experiencing some of the stuff back then that you're from the future, so you have to remember. Oh, we have to talk a certain way, we have to act a certain way. That type of stuff I've seen done all the time. But it's these little things like the historian loving what she's being around and being in history and just experiencing it. That's new for me. Seeing this whole thing where time is changing, history is changing, and it's affecting her life directly, that's interesting. I love these little nuances they've got thrown in there. It's really well done. I'm enjoying that part of it. Some of the other good stuff that's in here, you've got some sort of backstory going on, and honestly, that's what is keeping me interested right now. The history stuff I feel like is going to be one of those episode by episode things where this episode they're going to go here, and then this episode they're going to go here, and maybe one of the episodes, the more intense ones, they'll be trapped in one time, and they'll be stuck there for that time. But most of the time, I feel like this is what it's going to be. They go back in time and they come back, that type of thing. So that part isn't really making me want to come back to watch. What's really interesting is I want to know what's going on in the background. They have this Rittenhouse organization, I guess. I don't know what it is. But the bad guy, Flynn, apparently is against them. The main guy, Connor Mason, awesome last name, he is having Rufus record them for some reason, Lucy and Wyatt. He's having him record them for some reason. And it feels like there's some sort of dark thing going on at the lab. Like it feels like Wyatt may not be the bad guy, or what? Flynn may not be the bad guy in all of this. And even at one point in this episode, he says, "You're gonna come work for me one day," and she's like, "Oh, what? Are you gonna threaten me?" He's like, "It's not a threat." And I'm like, Lucy, clearly he knows some stuff that you do not know, so he probably is saying this like it's a fact. And sure enough, that's what he says. This is your future. So it sounds like they're going to start working together, but I don't know why. Because in the last episode, saving the Hindenburg, that seemed like it was... They thought he was going to like blow it up and kill even more people. Instead, he saves it, but then it looks like he's going to blow it up again. And in this one, it looks like he's trying to take out all of the leaders instead of just Abraham Lincoln. So it's kind of like you don't really know what his true motivations are. Like, it's interesting to see, why is he doing all this? What is the point? Why? What are you doing? Like, at one point you're kind of feeling like, okay, maybe he actually does have a good reason for doing this. But then he's trying to murder even more people, and you're just like, but how can he be a good guy and also a murderer? Are there going to be no good guys in this? Like, it's going to be the three, Rufus, Wyatt, and Lucy. Those are going to be the three good guys, and are going to be up against Flynn and whatever Rittenhouse is, all of this stuff. I'm curious to see what's going to happen there. They've got an interesting little twisty story thrown in that I feel like is going to be interesting when we finally find out what exactly is going on. A couple other things that caught my attention. You have, when they returned the agent from, I think she works for the CIA. I can't remember what agency she's from. But, she's there overseeing the whole thing. And you can see Lucy is clearly upset because she comes back, she's like, well, history has changed. And then the agent's just like, so, it's still similar enough. She's like, no, but it changed. Like, she's like, you didn't stop Flynn, but you did a good enough job. She's like, but it changed. And I completely understand where Lucy is coming from. Like, it feels like part of the problem is Flynn is going back and rewriting history, and stuff is changing, at least specifically for Lucy, which I have a theory I'm going to talk about in a second. But you feel like if history is changing, that's not good enough. It feels like they should stop history from changing at all, but this agent's just like, whatever. Abraham Lincoln still got shot. You guys stopped Flynn's plan. Good enough. But it's not good enough. Stuff is still changing. That can't be good enough. Why are you okay with all of this? So that's kind of curious, and I'm wondering what that means. What's going on there. As far as the theory, as Lucy's life is changing. She's engaged now. Her mother's not sick anymore. Never married her father. Never had Amy. I kind of wonder if maybe some of the stuff Flynn is changing, like the Hindenburg not going down. I wonder if anything that happened with Abraham Lincoln has anything to do with her as well. I wonder if he's doing some of this on purpose because it affects Lucy, because he knows she's going to work with him one day. I'm interested to see if he's doing some of this to affect Lucy's life, like if all of these scenarios that he's going to affects her directly. That'll be interesting to see. Maybe not. Maybe that's just, maybe the Hindenburg was just stroke of luck that it happened to affect her directly. But who knows? Maybe it will. Maybe not. We'll see. As far as, I've talked a lot of good about the show. Are there problems? Yes, a few. One in particular is a lot of the acting is a bit, not necessarily bad, but it's kind of stilted at times. Mainly whenever they're dialoguing. The explanation, the exposition stuff they're talking about. A lot of it gets very bogged down in exposition. Like, she's explaining, she's talking really fast, talking a lot. There are times when that does get too much, but a lot of it is at the beginning of it, and like I said, about halfway through I was kind of tuning out, and part of that was because of all the explanation going on, a lot of talking, and I know that's ironic because I'm doing a lot of talking right now, but I do think that hopefully they need to back away from that a little bit, not make it such a big thing to have her explain and explain and explain. Like, if you want to learn some of the history, which I do think the show is doing a good job of showing history as it happened. Like, I looked up what happened with John Wilkes Booth and Abraham Lincoln because I wanted to see, is that exactly how it happened? And it seems like what they showed is exactly how it happened. He went in there, shot Abraham Lincoln in the head, stabbed, I think somebody, I can't remember who that was, I think it was General Lee, and then falls onto the stage, breaks his leg, and then shouts out the Latin phrase, and then gets out. So I feel like this is showing it accurately, showing all of the events accurately. So I feel like if you're showing all these events accurately, you don't need to have her explain so much, because if we want to find out more about it, we can always look it up. We don't have to have it explained and explained and explained. So that is one problem. Another one is, if you're going to show us at the beginning what this episode is going to be about, like last week they showed us the Hindenburg disaster and then went into it, and then this week they showed the assassination and then went into it. I don't mind that, but then you try to do this like dramatic reveal where they're like, oh, he went back to this date, and they're like, what's on this date? And then she turns dramatically, the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And I'm just like, that would make more sense if we didn't see the assassination of Abraham Lincoln at first. I guess it makes sense in the sense of they don't know, but to have her say it so dramatically, it would only make sense to us if we didn't see that assassination first. Opening up with the assassination of Abraham Lincoln makes that reveal a lot less impactful. It's like, oh, there's no drama there. I already knew. I knew that's what she was going to say. So that's, she did the same thing last week with the Hindenburg disaster. Like they said a certain date, like, what, why, what happened on that day? She's like, that was when the day the Hindenburg went down. It was just all dramatic and stuff. They need to stop that. That doesn't need to be every single time. Especially if they're going to show us what happened on that date, the first thing. And then the other thing that I do have a slight problem with is I feel like a lot of the stuff from the first episode did get repeated. Like I said, you got Rufus dealing with the fact that he's a black guy back in these times, and even though things are not completely better now, obviously with all the racial stereotypes, the racial problems going on right now, it's still kind of like things are better than they were back then, back during the Civil War. So him getting back into this timeline, he's going to experience some issues. I understand that, but I feel like they're overplaying that right now. Like, it's too much of an issue. The same thing with Wyatt, dealing with the fact that he's coming back into this time, and he's a soldier from present day. And so he comes back here, and he's got a gun that nobody knows what it does, and so now he's shooting, and I don't know. It feels like just a lot of it was repeat from the first episode. I don't want it to be constantly on repeat, where we get the same formula, just different scenarios within the same formula. So we'll see what changes next week. Maybe this is just because it's the first couple episodes. They wanted to keep it simple. But so far, it's interesting enough. It's caught my attention. I want to see what's going to happen next. I want to see what's happening with the overall storyline. And like I said, I really enjoy seeing the emotional impact of a lot of this historical stuff. Like Lucy said at the end of the episode, it's one thing to just read about a historical event. It's another thing entirely to actually experience it. That is completely different. And I 100% agree. It's true. So that's one of the fun things about it, is getting to actually experience what happened back then. Just hopefully they make a few changes. Hopefully things do get better from here on out, because I do like where they're going with it. So as long as they make the right choices, I feel like this could be a really good first season. So let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What did you like and dislike about this episode? What do you want to see them do next? All that good stuff. Let me know. We can talk about and discuss it. Leave a like and subscribe for future timeless reviews, and I'll see you at the next one. Peace out.